All right, we want to take a moment to continue to focus on some key issues raised in this week's indictment of Donald Trump. And right now, a look at the fake elector scheme and how it worked. According to the indictment by the special counsel, Trump and his co-conspirators organized fraudulent slates of electors in 7 targeted states. They tried to copy the things only real electors are supposed to do, right down to meeting on the same day. That would be December 14th, 2020, then casting bogus votes for Trump. That also meant signing certificates falsely in some cases, though some of the fake electors were tricked into taking part. They were led to believe their votes would only be used if Trump won a lawsuit in their state. He never won any, by the way. The phony votes were then transmitted to Vice President Pence and other government officials to be counted on January 6th. The indictment also says Trump and his allies used the power of the DOJ, specifically Jeffrey Clark, to falsely present the fraudulent electors as valid. And they're accused of trying to convince Pence to use the fake electors and reject the actual will of the voters, of course. Pence refused to go along. With me now, constitutional attorney Andrew Lieb. And I mentioned Jeffrey Clark there, obviously, because the former president of the United States at the time was trying to get Jeffrey Clark appointed as the acting AG. And we believe Jeffrey Clark is also now co-conspirator number 4 who drew up those letters to be sent on behalf of the Department of Justice to these various states. Andrew, thanks for joining us on this. It seems as if the fake elector scheme is integral to this entire indictment. As Jack Smith wrote in the very beginning pages of that 45-page indictment, this is not about lying. This is about his efforts to essentially overturn the results of this election. And in part, it was through this fake elector scheme.
Yasmin, the fake elector scheme is like a warm knife cutting through butter. It's the thing that overcomes the Trump believed. He was just saying what he believed. It's freedom of speech. He could say he thought he won. That's what all his defenders are saying. But the fake elector scheme was him with actually 4 of his co-conspirators that we know about so far. We have Chesebro, we have Eastman, we have Giuliani. They're going to these 7 states and they're saying, sign these documents. I got one of them right over here. They sign these documents. I can't believe it. They sign these documents, Yasmin, and they say, our guy won. They submit it to the Senate. They submit it to the National Archives. They want to get them counted. Yasmin, this would be the same thing as if I filed a deed and said I own Yasmin's house and I forged your signature and filed it with the county clerk. This is fraud, Yasmin.
So the indictment is saying there was a plan in Wisconsin to have the fake electors vote in case Trump won his lawsuit there, supposedly to preserve his rights. They're kind of going off of this. And actually, Lauro has said this in various places. They're going off of something that Kennedy did back in 1960, I believe, when it came to Hawaii. But that was a much different case. And Lauro has been putting it out there quite often. Can you quickly talk us through what happened with the elector situation in Hawaii back in 1960 and why that was a valid way?
Yeah, it's actually the playbook that Chesebro wrote up of why they're going to do this. But what he missed is that situation was very different. That situation was in the 1960. It was 1960 election. We had Nixon as the VP. He was having Pence's job there, but he was also running against Kennedy. And the big differences, I have 2 big ones. At the time they did it, number one, there was a recount underway, whereas here we didn't have a recount. That's a very big distinction.
And it was a court-ordained recount, right? It wasn't ordained by, it wasn't a recount that was asked for instance, the Trump camp. It was court-ordained, right?
It was court-ordained, and ultimately, actually, the court said that Kennedy won the recount. So his fake electors actually later got ratified, if we're going to do an analogy. But here's the operative key. Here's the key fact. The governor of that state, Hawaii, certified Kennedy's electors and transmitted it to the VP at that time, Nixon, who said it was correct. Here we don't have the governors. We have the governor saying, Trump, you're wrong. It's not right. We're not doing this. Don't try and manipulate us. Don't try and push us. And that's a very key distinction in this situation, that in that situation, there was a recount from the court. Number one. Number two, Kennedy ultimately prevailed. And number three, the governor signed signed off on it. This is just some guys and gals out of nowhere signing documents and transmitting them as if a person won when they did it.
So my question is we're looking at Georgia, looking ahead, right? We think another indictment is coming out of the Fulton County DA's office, Fonnie Willis there, likely in the next couple of weeks. At least half of the 16 GOP electors there are getting immunity deals in exchange for cooperating. What would you want to know from them?
Well, I'm going to tell you we already have a window into that, Yasmin, because Michigan has 16 of these fake electors that were already indicted. And one of these ladies was all over the air as soon as she was indicted. And she goes, I was fooled. They manipulated me. I'm paraphrasing. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I think the key here is that when you have 8 of these guys and gals in Georgia of the 16, who told them to do it? Who was orchestrating this? Can they corroborate? You know, when you do a case like this, it's all about substantiation, corroboration. Was it Eastman? Was it Giuliani? Did it come directly from Trump? How do we know this? And that's really where the smoking gun's going to be when all these electors realize they're facing things like 14 years in jail and flip on the big guy.
All right, Andrew Lieb, stay with us, Andrew, if you will. You got a little bit of time, though. You can maybe go get a glass of orange juice or water or something. I have some more questions for you in the next hour about another key part of this case, Trump's First Amendment defense, of course, which we've been hearing a lot of from John Lauro as well. Until then, thank you.